During a quick sync with the CEO's son, my phone buzzed face down on the glass table. I glanced at the notification bar as I reached for my coffee. Unknown number? One line. Don't react. He is recording you. I kept my hand steady. No flinch, no breath caught in my throat. I'm Lauren, product director. 15 years into building the kind of resilience that doesn't blink when knives come wrapped in compliments. The conference room hummed with the polite white noise of the air system, the scent of lemongrass cleaner and fresh toner. He lounged in the chair opposite me like it was a throne he'd inherited. Elbows wide, watch face tilted toward me, a faint red dot pulsing along the bezel like a heartbeat. Relax, he said, smirking. This is just a temperature check. He didn't open a laptop. He didn't bring notes. He adjusted his cufflinks and placed his phone vertically against a water carafe, camera side angled up. The light glare on the screen hid everything except the tiny circle at the top. A new pen sat on the table. Shiny, branded, placed exactly between us like a centerpiece. The cap had a pinhole. I poured water, as if my attention lived somewhere else. I've taught younger managers how to observe. Noise, placement, posture. The pen didn't belong to our office kits. The watch's mic port was uncovered. The phone was angled to capture my face, not his. And the text, whoever sent it, had either saved me or wanted to see if I could save myself. He smiled in the way men do when they assume you need them. Lauren, I hear you're strong-willed. A pause, inviting me to fill it. I didn't. Silence is a tool, a scalpel if you hold it without shaking. I'm thorough, I said, matching the temperature of the room. It keeps our clients. He leaned in like we were co-conspirators, lowering his voice. I also hear you've been difficult with transitions. Resistance to change. The word hovered in the air between us. Code 4, you didn't applaud when I cut headcount to impress Dad. A tap vibrated through the table, his finger against the phone. The camera lens caught a flare of light. The pen glinted. I imagined the version of me they wanted to capture. Defensive, emotional, unprofessional. Clip a sentence, splice a sigh, title it Insubordination. Easy to edit a villain when you already wrote the script. Change goes faster when it's rational, I answered, folding my hands. We can talk through the rationale. He grinned wider like I'd stepped into a trap. Great. Let's talk about why you refused to ship V4.2 last week. I had emails, risk reports, a QA list as long as a receipt, security flags on the payment module that would have torched us in the press. He knew it. But what mattered today wasn't truth. It was tape. I pictured chopped sound bites, refused ship last week. I pictured my jaw clenched, brows drawn, a woman who couldn't collaborate. I documented my reasons in the release notes. I said evenly, "Do you have them pulled up?" He blinked. No laptop. No notes. Let's stay high level. I stayed quiet, counting the seconds. People who expect your panic get nervous when they don't get it. He shifted. The watch's red dot flashed again. My phone buzzed in my lap. Don't give him adjectives, only facts. The unknown number again. My pulse chased itself, then slowed. Whoever this was knew the game. He drummed his fingers. Look, you've done a lot here. But we're entering a new era. I need leaders who can be aligned. Aligned with what? I asked. With me. He said it without a smile now. The room felt smaller. I thought of my team. Sleepless nights, sticky notes, laughter over cold pizza. Thought of all the people his pivot would discard like receipts. He raised his phone. Just checking the time, he said, angling it, the lens catching my reflection. So, are you willing to commit to my timeline and the cultural changes I'm implementing? A perfect close-ended question. No context, no constraints. Yes or no. And either answer would hang me in the edit. I reached for the branded pen and turned it idly between my fingers, as if curious about the logo. The cap clicked once. Inside, something rattled. Too heavy for ink, too loose for spring. I set it down gently, face toward me. I commit to any timeline that doesn't compromise our client's financial data, I said, and to any cultural change that doesn't punish integrity. He let the silence stretch, then chuckled without warmth. You're principled. Fact, I said, not adjective. A tiny crease appeared between his eyebrows. He wasn't getting what he came for. He pivoted. Okay then. Off the record, he pointed at the phone and almost theatrically locked the screen. The watch's dot still pulsed. Lauren, people say you've been hard on certain colleagues. Some feel unsafe raising ideas. That's not our vibe. The word unsafe landed like a grenade. It's HR's favorite ghost. Impossible to hold. Devastating to chase. Frame a woman as unsafe and watch her drown trying to disprove a shadow. Which colleagues? I asked. I don't name names, he said, performing benevolence. I protect my people. Then protect them with specifics, I replied. Dates, incidents, witnesses. He stared, then smiled again. Bigger, brighter, faker. We're good here. We weren't, but I nodded, calm like a clear lake that hides a riptide. He stood, shaking my hand too long, the watch angled at my wrist. Great energy, he said. Let's keep this between us. No need to loop in Dad yet. He left the pen behind. In the hallway, chatter swelled and the world felt normal again, fluorescent and busy. I walked to my desk the long way, passing the framed mission statement, "We build trust," and tried not to laugh. The unknown number texted once more. Conference room, ceiling grill. Corner camera, do not touch the pen. Too late. I slid the pen into an envelope and labeled it with the meeting time, then drafted an email to myself with bullet points of everything he'd asked and everything I'd said. Facts only. Attach the envelope photo. Breathe. At 4:12 p.m., my phone began to vibrate across the desk. Unknown numbers, no voicemail. Again. A swarm. By 5:03 p.m., 83 missed calls. The first thing I did when I got home that night was lock the door and place the pen on my kitchen counter like it was a live wire. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands shook too much to drink. 83 missed calls from an unknown number. No messages, no voicemails. Just the repeated demand to answer. I hadn't. Something told me the silence was safer. I kept staring at the pen. It looked harmless enough. Just a black branded corporate pen, the kind they hand out at trade shows. But inside it, I'd felt something shift, something metallic. And the text had warned me. Do not touch the pen. Too late. I needed proof. I pulled out a small toolkit I used for fixing eyeglasses and carefully pried off the cap. A thin wire, coiled and taped, slipped out, attached to a tiny chip smaller than a fingernail. My breath caught. It wasn't just a pen. It was a microphone. I leaned back against the counter, my pulse in my throat. Whoever texted me had been right. But then, who were they? A whistleblower? A colleague who pitied me? Or maybe someone playing a deeper game? I didn't know. What I did know was that the CEO's son had planted surveillance equipment in a company meeting and was trying to bait me into saying something he could twist. I slid the chip into a plastic sandwich bag and tucked it inside a cookie tin high in the cupboard, away from curious eyes. Then I powered off my phone completely. Those 83 calls rattled me more than the microphone. Not knowing why someone was so desperate to reach me felt worse than knowing I'd been recorded. Sleep that night was impossible. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the meeting in my head. His smirk, his choice of words, the way he kept tapping the phone screen. Unsafe. That word echoed the loudest. They weren't just trying to frame me for insubordination. They were building a case that I was unstable, unfit for leadership. And with his father as CEO, it wouldn't take much to bury me. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. My colleagues trickled in with coffee cups and tired smiles, unaware of the storm brewing above their heads. I opened my laptop, plugged in my headphones, and started typing notes about the meeting. Every detail mattered. Placement of objects, his phrasing, the text messages, the pen. I even described the faint pulse on his watch because in court, or in HR, those small details could matter. Around 9:30, my manager, Helen, walked by. She paused at my desk. "Rough night?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Just be careful around Ryan." Ryan, the CEO's son, so I wasn't imagining it. She didn't elaborate, but her tone carried weight. My stomach tightened. Maybe she knew more than she could say aloud. By noon, an email hit my inbox. Subject, feedback session follow-up. It was from Ryan. He thanked me for my time and openness, then wrote a line that chilled me. "I appreciate your honesty about being resistant to leadership change. Let's keep building from there." I hadn't said that, not even close, but it was exactly the kind of admission that could be twisted in a performance review. My throat went dry. He was already rewriting the narrative. At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking lot, phone turned back on, scrolling through the unknown calls, all from the same number. I hesitated, then dialed it. Straight to voicemail. No greeting, no name, just the robotic operator. I hung up, exhaling hard. Who sends you a warning like that, then disappears? When I returned to my desk, there was an envelope waiting for me. No name, no handwriting on the outside, just the company's internal mail sticker. I glanced around, heart pounding, then slid it open under the desk. Inside was a single photo. A screenshot, grainy but clear enough. Me in the conference room yesterday, sitting across from Ryan. His phone angled, lens glinting, the pen perfectly centered between us. At the bottom corner, a timestamp. Someone had access to the recordings, and they were sending them to me. I stuffed the photo back into the envelope, my palms sweating. If they had access, it meant either someone inside his circle was turning against him, or they wanted me to know just how deep the surveillance went. That afternoon, I tried to focus on spreadsheets, but every click of my mouse sounded like a gunshot in my ears. Every laugh in the hallway made me wonder if they were laughing at me. I checked my email compulsively, terrified another follow-up would arrive twisting words I hadn't said. By the time I drove home, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. I parked in the driveway, shut off the engine, and sat in silence. The text, the pen, the photo, the 83 missed calls, it all connected, but the picture wasn't clear yet. I carried my bag inside and noticed something strange. The cookie tin where I'd hidden the chip wasn't in the cupboard. It sat on the counter, lid ajar. I froze. I lived alone. And suddenly I wasn't sure if the real danger was in the office or already inside my home. I didn't move for a full minute. The cookie tin sat on my counter, lid tilted like it had been interrupted mid-crime. I replayed last night. Cupboard, top shelf, tin tucked behind cake pans. I live alone. I don't have a cleaner. My landlord only enters for scheduled work, and there hadn't been any. I set my bag down quietly, as if the apartment might answer back. I checked the door. The chain was in place. The deadbolt turned cleanly, but the strike plate had a thin curl of metal shaved along the screw. Fresh, bright. I crouched and ran a finger over it. The scrape was new. I didn't call 911. I took photos. I put the pen, the chip, the tin, and the envelope from internal mail into separate zip bags, wrote the date and time in Sharpie, and dropped them in my freezer. A lawyer once told me cold, dry storage helps with latent prints and slows degradation. I don't know if that's true. It felt like doing something that wasn't panic. My phone lit the counter. Unknown again. I let it ring out. A text arrived. Don't call from home Wi-Fi. They monitor it. Monitor how? My ISP account is mine. Unless my router's default password, No, I changed it the week I moved in. Still, the text made the hair lift on my arms. I grabbed my keys and walked back out, locking the door like it could lock out the feeling. I drove to a cafe a few blocks away and sat where I could see both the entrance and the street. I switched off Wi-Fi, turned on data, and opened a new note. Everything that had happened, in order, in facts. Meeting setup, objects on table, his phrases, the follow-up email that put words in my mouth, the internal photo. I exported the note as a PDF and sent it to a new, clean email I created on the walk over. Then I printed the same list at the cafe kiosk, stapled it, and slid it into my bag. The message pinged again. If you summarize the meeting in an email, CC HR and your manager. Subject: clarification of yesterday's discussion. Only facts. No adjectives. I stared at the screen. Whoever this was, they knew corporate. Or they wanted me busy while someone else moved. Either way, the advice fit what my gut already said. Paper trail first. Feelings later. Back at the office the next morning, I wrote the email. I listed each question he'd asked, each answer I gave, the artifacts on the table, the phone's placement, his use of the word unsafe. I CC'd Helen in the HR general inbox. I attached my release note on version 4.2 and the security findings. I read it twice for adjectives, deleted the word smirk, and hit send. 10 minutes later, my calendar bloomed with a check-in from HR for the next day. No agenda, just the phrase supportive conversation. If you've worked long enough, you learn the vocabulary of ambush. Slack flashed on my screen. A message in our team channel posted from my account tagging the engineers. Ignore Ryan's timeline. We ship when I say so. The words stung because they were exactly the caricature he'd want. Power drunk, insubordinate, arrogant. I didn't type. I didn't delete. I took a screenshot, then another with the message hover showing the posting IP. I pinged Sam in IT, who owes me 3 favors and hates Ryan on principle. Me. Was my account accessed this morning? Sam. You on the exec floor Wi-Fi at 8:20? Me. No. 3 dots. Then, login token from boardroom guest. That SSID isn't public. Also odd, your session key was reset server side 5 minutes earlier. That's an admin action. Who's admin? He didn't answer for a beat. Originated from the network closet by the executive suite. You didn't hear that from me. I grabbed my notebook. Facts only. I wrote down the SSID, the time, the admin reset, Sam's exact phrases. My hands didn't shake this time. At noon, Helen appeared at my desk and asked if I had a minute. Her face looked like someone holding 2 truths they can't say out loud. We walked to a stairwell. No cameras, just concrete and the distant hum of vents. I can't advise you, she said softly, but document everything. And Lauren, don't be alone in meetings with him again. Why? She glanced at the door. Because I saw a draft of something I wasn't supposed to see. You're being positioned as non-collaborative and destabilizing. She swallowed. They're collecting. On what timeline? Soon. I nodded because there was nothing else to do that wouldn't make her part of the story she couldn't escape. On my way home that evening, the landlord called back. I told him about the strike plate and asked if any maintenance had been scheduled. He sounded genuinely confused. No vendors this week, Lauren. You're on a do not enter flag since March. He paused. You didn't give a key to your boyfriend? I don't have one. Okay. I'll pull the exterior camera. We only catch the stoop, not your door. An hour later, he texted a still image. A person in a generic maintenance jacket, head down, carrying a tote, entering the front door behind a resident who didn't look. No logo I recognized. The tote's side pocket held a slender pouch about the length of a pen. My phone buzzed again. The unknown number. Do not confront him or his father. Not yet. Bring the pen to a public place. Ask a chain pharmacy to bag it as a found item and staple the receipt to the bag. Then put that bag in your freezer. Why? I typed. Chain of custody. You need to be boringly credible. I followed the instructions. The pharmacy cashier didn't look twice. Back home, I slid the stapled bag beside the envelope of photos and shut the freezer like it could keep me from unraveling. My email pinged. A new invite from Ryan. Performance alignment. Mandatory. The location line read, Boardroom 4A. Recorded. Another text arrived, almost on top of it. You're not paranoid. Check the back of your router. I picked up the router like it was a sleeping animal. Dust ring on the shelf, 2 Ethernet cables, power brick, and, on the back, something I hadn't noticed before. A tiny USB stick with no logo, the kind of anonymous white plastic you buy in bulk. My stomach dropped. Most home routers have a USB port for storage or cellular backup. I'd never used mine. I didn't pull it out. I took photos from every angle, wrote the date on a sticky note and stuck it in the frame, then opened my laptop on mobile hotspot, not Wi-Fi. I typed the router's local address, logged in, and opened the status page. There it was. USB WAN, active. A secondary internet connection, signal bars, a carrier name, remote management enabled, log showing successful admin logins I hadn't made. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Don't disable it yet. Photograph every settings screen. System log. MAC lists. Then power the router off at the wall and bag the USB device. I did exactly that. Photos, screen recordings, a PDF printout of the system log. Then I powered the unit down, put on dish gloves, ridiculous, but it made me feel careful, and slid the USB stick into a fresh zip bag. I drove back to the same pharmacy, told the same board cashier I'd found it outside, and asked them to bag and staple a receipt again. Chain of custody for dummies. Back home, I put it in the freezer with the pen and the envelope. Sleep came in fragments. Every creak was a footstep, every car engine a watcher. I turned the router back on, but left Wi-Fi disabled and used my phone's hotspot. Paranoid? Maybe. But the little white stick had answered a bigger question. Whoever had been inside my apartment didn't just want to scare me. They wanted access. Quiet and constant. Morning brought the HR supportive conversation. I arrived early and asked Helen to walk me in. She hesitated in the doorway, then nodded and took a seat beside me. 2 HR people on the other side of the small table, smiling in the way people do when they're about to read from a script. We want to understand how best to support you, the lead said, then glanced at a folder with my name on it. We've received feedback about your style. I kept my hands flat. Before we begin, is this meeting investigatory or disciplinary? And is it being recorded? A flicker between them. No, not disciplinary, she said. And no, not recorded. Then I'd like a written agenda, I said, and to receive any allegations in writing so I can respond accurately. Also, I'll be taking notes, and I'll need a copy of anything you rely on. Another flicker. The second HR rep smiled tighter. This is just a check-in. Great, I said. Then I'll start by clarifying yesterday's discussion with Ryan. I handed over the email I'd sent, the release notes, the security findings for version 4.2. Fax only. Also, for your awareness, a device was left in a meeting. It appears to record audio. I've preserved it. They didn't touch the paper. We can route this through proper channels, the lead said. In the meantime, several colleagues have reported feeling unsafe raising ideas with you. Which colleagues? I asked. We don't disclose names. Then I'm asking for dates, incidents, and witnesses, I said. Specifics. I can't correct what I can't see. A pause. The second rep flipped a page. There was also a Slack message from your account instructing engineers to ignore leadership timelines. I saw that, I said. Here's a screenshot capturing the posting IP and a note from IT indicating my session key was reset from an admin console minutes before. I'm asking for an audit and to have my account placed on watch. Helen shifted beside me, the slightest movement, like a breath she could finally release. The lead HR rep took the paper this time. "We'll look into it," she said. "Please confirm in writing," I replied, "and copy legal. Also, any future meetings about my performance should be scheduled with notice and a stated agenda. If we move into disciplinary territory, I'll need to bring counsel." They nodded, but their eyes said this wasn't the conversation they'd planned. When we stood, the second rep offered a soft olive branch. "We appreciate your professionalism." It sounded like a line she believed, not one she was allowed to say aloud. Back at my desk, a calendar invite popped up from Ryan. "Performance alignment, boardroom 4A, recorded." The description was empty. I declined with a single sentence. "I'll attend once HR provides an agenda and confirms participants. Please send the recording policy and distribution process I CC'd HR." He replied within minutes. "No need for HR, this is informal." Helen appeared at my chair, jaw set. "Don't go," she said quietly. "He's been doing one-on-ones without HR. People leave those meetings worse." "I'm not going," I said. "Not without a paper trail." My phone buzzed. Unknown. "Good. Keep everything in email. If they insist, ask for a conference room with windows and a neutral HR recorder. Bring a witness. Own device off. Face down. Ask for a copy." "Who are you?" I typed. The dots pulsed, stopped, returned. Someone who lost more than a job here. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Whoever they weren't guessing. They were remembering. On my way home, the landlord texted another still image from the building cam. Same jacket, same tote, different day. The person followed a neighbor in again, head turned away from the lens. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't want to be the kind of person who saw ghosts. I wanted the kind of evidence that made ghosts visible to everyone else. At home, I unplugged the router, put it and the power brick into a box, labeled it, and slid it into a closet. I set up a new travel hotspot I could shut off with a button and move my laptop to the kitchen table where I could see the front door. I wrote everything into a timeline, attached photos, logs, and receipts, and sent the bundle to a new folder labeled Counsel in my clean email. Then I drafted one more message. Short, factual, impossible to ignore. To Human Resources and Legal, a device resembling an audio recorder was introduced into a meeting by a senior employee. A separate cellular device was discovered attached to my home router. Both are preserved. Please advise on the company's policy regarding recording, remote access, and retaliation. I am willing to cooperate fully in an investigation. I hit send and watched the cursor blink, steady as a heartbeat. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't trust silence anymore. The reply from HR came faster than I expected. 2 lines. "We acknowledge receipt of your concerns. Please do not discuss this matter further until we review internally. Translation. Stall." By then, I'd learned to read between the lines. HR didn't move quickly unless the CEO forced them. And Ryan was the CEO's son. If they were stalling, it meant he was still protected. For now. I didn't feel safe waiting. I couldn't sit in my apartment with freezer bags of evidence like a detective in exile. So I called a lawyer, a woman I found through a local employment advocacy group. I forwarded everything. The meeting notes, the pen, the router screenshots, the Slack hack, the HR exchange. She called me back within hours. "Lauren," she said, calm but sharp, "what you have isn't paranoia. It's retaliation. It's surveillance. It's grounds for both a civil claim and whistleblower protection. But first, you need to protect yourself from being fired before you can fight." "How?" "Stay predictable. Attend work. Document everything. And if you're pressured into a meeting again, ask to record it yourself. If they refuse, note it in writing. Don't raise your voice. Don't give them tape they can twist." I exhaled, a sound that felt like steel leaving my lungs. "So I wait?" "You wait," she said, "and then you strike in public." That night, my phone buzzed again with a text from the unknown number. "You're not alone. We tried to warn you. Don't let him corner you. Watch for the Friday town hall. He'll go after you there. I froze. The town hall. Every quarter, the CEO gathered the whole company in the auditorium. Ryan had been edging closer to the spotlight, positioning himself as the heir. If he wanted to discredit me, what better stage than one with 300 witnesses? Friday came like a storm cloud. I walked into the auditorium, notebook in hand, phone in airplane mode. Ryan stood near the stage in a tailored suit, smile wide, voice loud enough to carry. My stomach knotted. The CEO spoke first, praising growth and resilience. Then Ryan took the microphone. He clicked to a slide titled, Culture of Resistance. My name appeared in a bullet point, highlighted in red. Gasps rippled through the rows. He launched into a speech about leadership, holding back innovation, about toxic resistance to change. He didn't say Lauren again, but everyone could see the slide. My pulse hammered. This was it. When he finished, the CEO clapped him on the back. Thank you, Ryan. Strong words. Then, almost as an afterthought, Lauren, do you want to respond? The spotlight swung like a blade. My legs shook as I walked to the front. I didn't take the mic. I pulled a folder from my bag and handed it to the moderator. These are logs, emails, and evidence of recording devices placed in meetings. I ask that they be displayed here so everyone can see the context. The moderator hesitated, but the CEO nodded, curious. The projector flickered. A photo appeared. Ryan's phone on the conference table, lens pointed at me, timestamp clear. Another slide. The Slack message tagged to my account with IT's note showing the login came from boardroom guest. Murmurs filled the air. I kept my voice steady. Facts, not adjectives. A recording device and a pen. Unauthorized access to my router. Messages sent from my account without my knowledge. Attempts to frame me as unsafe. All documented, preserved, and now filed with counsel, Ryan tried to laugh. This is ridiculous. But then Helen stood from her seat near the back. Her voice carried. I saw the draft. I saw the setup. She's telling the truth. Silence fell heavier than any gavel. The CEO's face tightened, red creeping up his neck. Ryan sputtered, but the screen behind him betrayed him more than I ever could. The whispers grew into a low roar, employees exchanging looks that said everything. The golden sun had crossed a line. I walked off the stage without waiting for applause. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new text. Now you've turned on the lights. Don't look back. That evening, HR called me in. The tone was different. They spoke of serious allegations, external counsel, and suspension pending investigation. Not mine, Ryan's. I answered their questions calmly, sticking to facts. My lawyer sat beside me, expression unreadable. By Monday, Ryan's name was off the org chart. The CEO issued a memo about protecting integrity and trust. It read like damage control, but it was the first acknowledgement that I wasn't invisible. At home, I pulled the frozen bags from the freezer and stacked them in a box for my lawyer. The evidence that had weighed me down was finally out of my hands. I poured tea, sat on the couch, and let the quiet settle. For the first time in weeks, silence felt like mine again. The message I wanted to hold on to wasn't about revenge, though part of me savored it. It was about survival, about not letting someone else write my story in edited clips and false accusations. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The truth needs receipts, and silence when it's chosen is power. She hadn't even finished the HR slideshow when she angled her phone toward the window and pouted at her reflection. Peace sign. Overhead light turned ring light. Sneakers on the edge of my old desk like a tourist dangling feet over a canyon. I stood just beyond the frosted glass, watching her hunt for the perfect filter in a chair I'd spent 2 decades keeping upright, while everything around it shook. My name is Claire Holt. I'm 45, or I was when this started. Until last week, I was Senior Operations Engineer at Meridian Freight Systems, The company you never hear about until your package doesn't arrive. I don't have a podcast. I don't walk and talk for the company Slack. I learned where the system creaks when the weather turns and which server needs a tap on the side like an old radiator. I saved us quietly, more times than anyone bothered to count. Do you mind taking a pic? The intern asked me, mistaking my silence for free time. The new hire, Zoe, 22, big eyes, bigger phone, posed with the caption already typed in her head. First day vibes, she said, grinning. Is there like a policy about working from home? I'm way more productive there. Today? I asked. Uh-huh. Not really, I said, but it might be soon. My nameplate was still on her desk. My meeting with Mark, the kind of VP who underlines sentences in airport books and calls it strategy, had been 2 days earlier. Subject line: future fit discussion. His office smelled like orange peels and confidence. He smiled like he just remembered I had a birthday coming up. Claire, he said, voice smooth, practiced. Thanks for making time. I always do. He glanced at his screen like he needed the prompt. We're modernizing our stack, he began, folding his hands. We need to reposition, bring in fresh energy. People who reflect where we're going, not just where we've been. There it was, the choreography. We're incredibly grateful, he continued, but you've been deep in legacy for a long time. It's not realistic to expect full fluency in the new platforms. For the business, it's better to transition to someone younger, I said. He blinked. More agile. I rewrote our failover protocol during the winter storms, I reminded him. From my car in a parking lot when the office lost heat. Yes, he said gently, like he was consoling a child. But culture is changing. He slid the envelope. 3 months. Healthcare through quarter end. A letter of appreciation if I wanted one. I don't, I said. He waited for a reaction. Anger, tears, a bargain. I buttoned my blazer, thanked him for the opportunity, and wished him luck with the new systems. He looked almost disappointed that I didn't make it easy to call me emotional on the way out. On Zoe's first day, I handed her the access badge still clipped to my belt. I left a list of passwords with IT. Not on a sticky note. Despite the myths, I'm not reckless. I rubbed the dent in the armrest I'd carved with late nights and clenched hands. No one looked up. No one followed me to the elevator. The doors took their time, like the building was deciding whether to keep me. At home, the quiet felt unnatural, like a fridge that stopped humming. I brewed coffee the slow way and let the steam dress the kitchen. No pings, no red banners, no escalating threads with my name in them. On the counter, the framed photo of my daughter at 9 stared back. Missing tooth grin, glitter shoes. She's 16 now. I've missed more school plays than I'll admit. Just one crisis, I used to tell her. I'll make the next one. By mid-morning, the first text came. Wait, what happened? Then another. Zoe asked where the shared drive lives. An hour later, Mark told the team it was mutual. Said you didn't want to evolve. I let the screen go dark. Curiosity won once. I checked the internal directory. My name was already gone, like a patch rolled back overnight. I took a notebook and drew a line down the center. On the left, names of people pushed out in the last 18 months. Quiet exits, no memos. Reorgs that never touched the executives who approved the downtime. On the right, what those people had built, billing rules no vendor could replicate without a year of false starts. The nighttime batch script only 3 of us knew to bless in a particular order. The vendor relationships that weren't in any CRM. The right column filled faster than the left. I didn't plan revenge. I planned coffee with people who remembered what worked. Paula from compliance, now consulting part-time while caring for her dad. Amir from QA, rotated out after refusing to bless a half-tested deployment. Jenny from network, who kept the place stitched together with 6 screens and a messy bun. They were all doing fine. They were also all watching Meridian like you watch an ex trying to date their mirror. By afternoon, 2 vendors reached out. Friendly, cautious, the way you ask a neighbor what that smell is without accusing anyone. Hey Claire, heard there's a new contact for ops approvals? We'll pause the rollout until things settle. I didn't ask for that. I didn't hint. People who build bridges also know when to take their weight off. Zoe posted a story that night. Someone forwarded it. A boomerang of her laptop with a caption about dinosaur code and a crying laughing emoji. For half a second, the camera caught a sliver of an internal dashboard. I didn't like her comment. I just felt something shift, like a shelf someone swore was level finally admitting it wasn't. The next day, 3 DMs from inside. Do you remember the order for the month-end reconciliation? Zoe says the new tool has it, but we can't find the staging logs. Then, Mark says we're skipping the dry run because agile. Then, are you around just to sanity check? I stared at the kettle warming again. My ex used to say I only felt alive when something was on fire. Maybe he was right. Or maybe I just spent 20 years keeping sparks from finding kindling while other people practice speeches. That evening, Paula added me to a quiet group chat. 29 names I hadn't seen together in one place since the last holiday party that actually had food. No rants, no insults. Just timestamps, thread links, a shared memory of where the bones were buried and which ones still mattered. Someone uploaded a checklist I'd written the year the flood took out our second floor. It still held. I slept deeply for the first time in months. On the 3rd morning, I woke to a message from an unknown number. Call me. Then a second. Urgent. Please. I made coffee first. The kettle clicked off. The phone buzzed again. I finally swiped to open, ready to listen or not. I hadn't decided. The number flashing on my phone had no name, just digits I hadn't seen in years. I let it buzz until it nearly stopped, then thumbed it open. Claire, a voice said. Careful. Polished. Mark. I didn't answer right away. He filled the pause like he was trained to. I hope this isn't a bad time. It's fine, I said, though my second cup of coffee was already cooling in my hand. He exhaled, as if relieved I hadn't hung up. We're in the middle of some temporary challenges. Nothing major, but, well, the transition isn't as smooth as we'd like. Zoe's brilliant, of course, but she's still acclimating. That word, acclimating, did a lot of heavy lifting. What do you need, Mark? I asked. He softened his tone, the way people do when they're pretending hierarchy doesn't exist. We were wondering if you'd consider consulting. Just short term. Help us stabilize a few workflows. Obviously, we'd compensate you generously. I sipped the coffee, let the silence draw. He tried again. This isn't about age, Claire. It never was. You're invaluable. You're saying I'm invaluable 3 days after you told me I wasn't worth the investment. His pause stretched. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Claire, listen. No, I cut in. Calm, steady. You'll figure it out. Good luck, I ended the call before he could play the sympathy card. My hand didn't shake. The texts kept coming, though. Not from Mark. He was too proud to beg twice, but from inside. Month end failed. Reconciliation incomplete. Then, Zoe tried to rerun it, broke half the batch. Then, please don't post about this. We'll fix it. I hadn't planned to post. Revenge by Facebook never appealed to me. But word travels in quieter ways. That afternoon, Paula from compliance called. You've seen it, right? She asked. Seen what? She went live. On TikTok, my stomach dipped. Doing what? Complaining. Something about ancient code and how you left her with a mess. She showed her screen. Claire, it wasn't blurred. I pulled up the video. There she was. Ring light haloing her face. Background a blur of dashboards I knew like muscle memory. Caption. Day 3 and I already want to quit LOL. 100 laughing emojis from strangers who didn't realize the data behind her wasn't just numbers. It was client contracts, routing matrices, financial pipelines. I didn't laugh. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. By midnight, the clip had 30,000 views. By morning, 60. Someone in the comments recognized the interface. Wait, is that Meridian's ops panel? Another chimed in. She just leaked internal systems. This isn't funny, it's negligent. The algorithm did the rest. At lunch, I met Amir at a diner off the highway. He looked the same. Tired eyes, sharp mind, but lighter somehow, like leaving had given him back oxygen. He didn't even say hello before sliding his phone across the table. "You need to see this," he said. It was a screenshot from Meridian's internal Slack, a message from Mark. "Team, we're addressing a brief infrastructure hiccup. Appreciate your patience during this transition." Hiccup. That was the word he chose. "You know what a hiccup looks like?" Amir asked. "This isn't it. Half their month end is corrupted. The vendor we used for freight audits? They pulled out this morning, said they'll wait until systems stabilize." I stirred my coffee, though I wasn't thirsty. "They're panicking," he went on. "And they're blaming you." "Of course they are." He leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Not yet." But my mind was already building columns again. Left side, names. Right side, what they held together. We'd carried Meridian like scaffolding no one bothered to maintain. Remove the scaffolding, the building doesn't fall immediately. It sways, creaks, then tilts in ways no one can ignore. That night, Paula added another link in the group chat. A PDF, leaked from an internal strategy deck. Header, Future Forward Culture 2025. Bullet points beneath, reduce legacy friction by transitioning senior staff. Prioritize fresh perspectives over institutional stagnation. Streamline by flattening outdated hierarchies. Zoe had posted the link without realizing it was visible in her story. Someone screenshotted. I read the lines twice, then a third time. Legacy friction. Institutional stagnation. Pretty phrases for people like me. People like Amir. People like Paula and Jenny and the 30 others in the chat. We weren't friction. We were the gears. Before bed, I forwarded the deck to an old acquaintance, a journalist I hadn't spoken to in years. Subject line. Might want to ask why a modernization plan reads like a purge manual. No name attached. No need. I slept well. The next morning, the news broke on a niche industry blog. Headline, Meridian Freight Faces. Questions over workforce strategy after TikTok leak. The article didn't name me. It didn't need to. Vendors whispered. Clients asked quiet questions. The blog headline made the rounds faster than I expected. Vendors sent it to each other with careful subject lines. FYI, seen this? Any impact on us? Like they were passing a hot pan with oven mitts. Inside the group chat, Paula posted a screenshot from HR. Social media incident under review. Employee access suspended pending investigation. No name in the memo, but we didn't need one. Zoe's profile went dark. The video disappeared. The comments didn't. By mid-morning, a message from a Meridian address I didn't recognize landed in my inbox. Friendly reminder that all former employees remain bound by confidentiality provisions. No greeting, no signature. Just the implication that this was my fault. I read it twice, then archived it. I hadn't shared anything they hadn't leaked themselves. Silence is a kind of armor when people expect you to yell. Mark called again. I let it go to voicemail. He tried text. Consulting, half-day blocks, your rate. The period after rate did a lot of begging. I put the phone face down and rinsed my coffee mug. At lunch, I met Jenny at a strip mall cafe where the tables wobble unless you slide a sugar packet under one leg. She still wore her ID lanyard out of habit, even though it didn't open any doors now. We ate in the kind of quiet that belongs to people who've shared too many midnight shifts. They're saying the outage last night was contained, she said, pushing a napkin toward the offending table leg. Was it? I asked. She smirked. Define contained. I didn't need the details. I could hear them anyway. Retrees spooling until the queue choked, a reconciliation job starting without the dependency it needed, an engineer overriding a warning because a VP stood behind him saying, "Just push it. You don't have to be in the building to smell smoke." "What do you want to do?" Jenny asked. "I don't want to fight," I said. "I want a life." It came out before I could sand it down. She didn't laugh. She just nodded, like that answer had been waiting inside me for a while. On the drive home, my daughter called from a friend's house. "Can you pick me up in an hour?" she asked. Her voice bounced with the kind of easy happiness I missed when I answered alerts at the dinner table. "Sure," I said. "Text me when you're ready." At home, I found a message request on LinkedIn from a name I hadn't seen since a port backlog winter years ago. Elena Cho, now COO at Harborline Logistics. Saw the article. "We met during the Oakland Jam. You got our invoices out when everyone else was stuck. Are you open to a conversation about modernization that doesn't break what works?" We spoke that afternoon. No buzzwords, no pitch deck. She remembered details I'd forgotten. How I'd mapped the old billing rules to a new parser without touching the fragile parts. How we staged rollouts quietly on Sundays because drivers checked their pay on Mondays and panic spreads faster than truth. She didn't dangle a title. She offered scope. "Part-time at first," she said. "Flexible hours. We need someone who respects boring stability. Bring 2 or 3 people you trust." I didn't say yes immediately. I asked for a day. She agreed without a sigh. That night, Zoe messaged me from a throwaway account. The note was short. "I'm sorry, I didn't understand. They told me to make it fun." I thought joking about the old code would help me fit in. I messed up. "I know you hate me." I read it twice, then a third time, because something in the last line sounded like she was 22 and alone in a place that eats people at any age. "I don't hate you," I wrote back. "Ask for training. Shadow someone who knows the flows end to end. Say no when you don't understand. It's not weakness. It's safety." I hovered, then added, "You didn't break it alone. Don't let them say you did." She didn't reply. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe that wasn't the point. Paula pinged the chat. "HR interviews tomorrow. Legal wants statements. 2 folks filed age bias complaints." Amir answered with a shrug emoji and a link to an article about rotational exits. Jenny posted a checklist for month end that included a step I'd forgotten I invented. Bless the jobs in this order or they'll fight each other. We tagged it for later, not because we owed Meridian anything, but because forgetting the past is how you break the future. I picked up my daughter as the sky went lavender. She slid into the passenger seat, hair smelling like drugstore shampoo and sleepovers. "You seem different," she said, studying my face the way kids do when they're trying to read weather. "Less notifications," I said. She smiled. "I like this you." At home, we ate pasta that wasn't rushed, watched half a movie, and I didn't check my phone. It still buzzed on the counter, vibrating against the mail like a fly stuck in a lampshade. When I finally flipped it over, Elena's message waited. "Take your time. If you're in, we start small. Your conditions, not ours." Conditions. The word felt like oxygen. I typed, "I'll come if I can bring 3. Compliance, QA, network. We do this slow. No performative launches, no cameras, just work." I stared at the cursor, then hit send. Her reply came back almost immediately. "Deal." In the morning, the industry blog posted an update. Vendors pausing, clients asking for assurances, Meridian promising a new era of transparency, without saying what went wrong. Mark's public post used the word resilience 3 times and legacy twice. None of it the way those words mean anything. I brewed coffee and opened a new notebook. Not columns this time. A list. What a stable system actually needs and what it doesn't. I added names at the top. Paula, Amir, Jenny. Then underlined them once like a promise. Before I could close the cover, my phone lit up with a new unknown number. I let it ring. It almost stopped before I answered. "Claire," Mark said, breath already thin. "We're escalating. We need you in the building today." I looked at the list, at the 3 names, at the life I'd started to sketch in the margins. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. "No," I said. "I'm not coming back." He started to talk about offers and rates and urgency, words stacking like boxes in a hallway that never gets cleared. I set the phone on the counter and let him finish his speech to the air. By the time I picked it up again, it had gone quiet. A new text blinked from Elena. "Conference room reserved for Monday. No speeches. Whiteboard only." I wrote one more line under the list. "Build what lasts." Then I closed the notebook, turned off notifications, and let the house be quiet. Monday morning, I didn't drive to Meridian. I drove across town to a co-working space Elena had rented. Neutral walls, clean Wi-Fi, no mission statements taped to the glass. The kind of place where silence has weight, not absence. Paula was already there, laptop open, glasses perched low like she was reading fine print no one else could see. Amir showed up next, muttering about traffic and caffeine. Jenny arrived last, balancing a tray of coffees because she still thought about people before code. We didn't hug. We didn't make speeches. We just sat down and opened our laptops. That was enough. Elena joined us with her project lead, a younger guy named Marco who looked like he lived in spreadsheets. They gave us the outline. Harborline was expanding routes, systems were straining, and the last contractor had left things brittle. "We don't need flash," Elena said. "We need foundation." Quiet strength, she looked at me when she said it. I nodded once. We carved the work into pieces, nothing dramatic. Compliance flows for Paula, reconciliation scripts for Amir, routing backbones for Jenny. I took integration, the glue no one notices until it fails. By noon, we'd already drafted a skeleton plan. No Slack announcements, no glossy decks, just work that made sense. Meanwhile, the group chat kept pinging. Paula scrolled during lunch, shaking her head. Meridian's internal audit is out. Zoe suspended pending review. Michelle from HR recommending termination for breach of confidentiality. Jenny snorted. Convenient scapegoat. Amir pushed his fries aside. Typical. Blame the intern. Ignore the strategy that hired her without training. I didn't add anything. But I remembered Zoe's message. Her clumsy apology, the fear under it. She'd made mistakes, sure, but she hadn't built the culture that pushed her to perform instead of learn. That night after my daughter was asleep, I checked LinkedIn out of habit. Zoe's profile was gone. Deactivated. No trace of the girl who wanted to work from home on her first day. Michelle's headline had changed too. Former executive at Meridian Freight Systems. The announcement was dressed up in corporate politeness, stepping away to pursue new opportunities, but I knew what it meant. Mark posted a note full of resilience and forward momentum. The comments were quiet, polite thumbs-ups from people who didn't want to get involved. I didn't add mine. I just closed the app. By midweek, Harborline's pilot system was running. Small scale, nothing flashy, but solid. Vendor onboarding was smoother than I remembered in years. A partner emailed, "This feels stable. Who's behind it?" Elena forwarded it to me with a simple line. "Your team is making an impression." At the same time, Meridian's cracks widened. A vendor leaked to the same industry blog. We've paused integration due to destabilized infrastructure following recent restructuring. It didn't name Mark. It didn't need to. The subtext was clear. Competence had been traded for optics. On Thursday, I was asked to speak on a panel at the Regional Systems Conference. I hadn't planned to. I just wanted to listen. But one of the moderators spotted me and asked if I'd fill in. The topic: responsible modernization in legacy systems. I hesitated, then agreed. When they handed me the mic, I didn't bring slides. I talked about what happens when you treat stability as stagnation, about why boring tech is strong tech, about why modernization without memory is just gambling. I didn't mention Meridian. I didn't need to. The room was full of people who'd lived the same story in different buildings. When I finished, the applause wasn't loud, but it was steady, solid. A few people lined up to shake my hand. Then I saw her, Michelle, standing near the exit. No entourage, no lanyard, just watching. Our eyes met for a second. She turned and walked out. I didn't follow. Back at the co-working space the next day, I onboarded 2 more engineers. Both over 40, both brilliant, both discarded by companies that claimed they needed cultural agility. No TikToks, no hashtags, just quiet coffee and commits that actually worked. By Friday, our system was outperforming what I'd built at Meridian in both speed and stability. Not pretty, not flashy, but it held. Meridian's press release dropped the same afternoon. They were rebranding, calling it a new chapter. New name, new logo, new slogans. None of it addressed the outages, the clients they'd lost, or the people they'd pushed out. I stared at the bright colors on the page and thought, you can't patch over rot with paint. That evening, my daughter and I cooked dinner together. She grated cheese, I stirred the sauce. She glanced at me, smiling. You don't look tired anymore. I feel lighter, I said. She leaned her head against my arm. I like this version of you. Later, when she was in bed, I sat with my notebook. Not columns anymore. Just a sentence I wrote slowly, like carving it into stone. Relevance isn't what gets seen. It's what keeps running when no one's looking. I underlined it once, then closed the book. And just when I thought the story had finally quieted, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the preview made me pause. Claire, it's urgent. We need to talk about... I let it ring. I already knew who it was, and I already knew what my answer would be. The urgent text wasn't from Mark, after all. It was from Meridian's general counsel. Carefully worded, friendly on the surface, teeth underneath. We hope to speak informally about a possible short-term engagement to support our recovery efforts. I set the phone down and watched the steam lift off my mug. A minute later, Mark called anyway. Claire, he said, voice tight. We're at risk of losing our biggest client. The board is concerned. I can get you whatever rate you want. I let him talk. He cycled through flattery, urgency, nostalgia. When he finally paused, I said, you don't need me. You need to listen to the people who keep telling you the unglamorous truth. We don't have time for that, he snapped, then caught himself. I mean, we need a quick stabilization. There isn't a quick version, I said. There's the right one or the expensive lesson. Silence. Then softer. We made mistakes. Zoe didn't design your culture, I said. She just learned it out loud. He took a breath that sounded like defeat. If you change your mind, I won't. I ended the call. My hand didn't shake. At Harborline, our room grew louder in the best way. Keys clicking, whiteboard markers squeaking, Jenny's quiet got it when a stubborn root finally behaved. Paula mapped controls so cleanly the auditors would have to invent reasons to frown. Amir rebuilt the reconciliation sequence so it could recover from human error without panic. I handled the glue code, the parts that made all the other parts hold hands without noticing. Elena kept her promise. No speeches, no ring lights, no hero narratives. When a partner sent a note, onboarding never felt this steady. She put it in a folder named Proof, Not Hype, and got back to work. The group chat hummed with updates from the old world. HR interviews happened. 2 age bias complaints moved to formal review. A vendor paused integration, pending environment stabilization. Meridian posted a new value statement about resilience that used a lot of words and said very little. The rebrand launched with a glossy video and comments turned off. Zoe wrote to me one more time, from a personal email this time. They let me go, she admitted. I deserved some of it. I didn't know what I didn't know. I got an interview at a mid-sized shop where they do actual training. Do you think I should even try? Yes, I wrote back. Ask questions until you're annoying. If they make you feel small for asking, leave. Find the place that treats caution like a skill. A day later, she replied, they offered me a junior role. No social posts, lots of shadowing. I'm going to say yes. I wished her luck and meant it. The next week, Meridian announced a leadership transition. Mark's photo disappeared from the website. A board member slid into interim. Michelle's post about new chapters sank without ripples. The industry blog followed with a quiet piece. Sources say a series of rushed changes preceded recent outages. No fireworks, just dots close enough together that anyone could connect them. Elena asked if I wanted to make a statement to the reporter. Set the record straight, she said. I shook my head. The record's in the uptime, I said. She smiled like she'd been waiting for that answer. On Thursday, my daughter had a recital. It's the sort of event I used to attend with one eye on the stage and one eye on my phone. I left the phone in my bag. She scanned the audience until she found me. I lifted 2 fingers, our tiny sign from when she was small, 2 taps to say I'm here. Her shoulders dropped. When she bowed at the end, she looked for me first. I clapped until my hands hurt. That night, Elena forwarded a note from Harborline's CFO. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. First clean audit in 2 years. She added a smiley face, then deleted it, then added it back. We celebrated the way boring people do. We checked the dashboards, saw everything green, and went home on time. I still got the occasional ping from Meridian addresses, some arrogance, some grace. One engineer wrote, we should have listened to you about staging. Another said, if there's ever room on your team. I saved his email. Not as a trophy. As a reminder, people want to do good work if you let them. On Friday, I stood in front of our whiteboard and wrote the only rule that mattered at the top. Modernize with memory. Under it, I added 3 lines. If you don't understand it, don't deploy it. Boring and stable beats flashy and brittle. Ask for help before the fire starts. Paula nodded at the last one. Make that a policy, she said. So we did. A week later, Harborline greenlit Phase 2. Elena slid a contract across the table and said, title if you want it. Or not. Just keep building like this. I asked for something smaller. Names on the change logs, credit where it belongs, reasonable hours, the ability to hire people who've been told they're too much or not a fit, for rooms that mistake noise for talent. She said yes to all of it. On my way out, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Meridian had concluded internal reviews and would refocus on core competencies. I didn't click. I didn't need to. I knew what the statement wouldn't say. That competence isn't a press release. It's a routine.